Yeah, we'll crack on. So I teed you up earlier. Rob, you're on the procurement strategy panel earlier today.
Yep.
You led an amazing transformation project at Deliveroo, which I hope we'll hear more about. And you're the pin-up boy on September's edition of Procurement magazine. That's the last time I'll crack that particular unpleasant joke. But there's a cracking interview about the more in-depth stuff about what you've done. So look, I'll leave it to you to take us through.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, hello everybody. So I've been a little busy wandering around, doing a couple of other things today. So this is going to be a bit of a lucky dip on what slides turn up now, because I haven't actually had a chance to go back through them again. But just thinking about when I joined Deliveroo and the reason why I joined Deliveroo, there was a bit of a problem going on in the world, particularly around Europe, in terms of the economy. So, you know, does anybody here remember what the conditions were like in 2022? And it looked a little like this. So I'll let that play around in the background a bit. But so I was appointed into Deliveroo at the beginning of, or during 2022, but joined at the beginning of 2023, and walked into a situation where our business was underperforming compared to what our investors' expectations were, and that gap was playing through in terms of how our share price was looking and what people were really thinking about the prospect for us. And on the screen, you can see all these businesses that were lost in 2022, right? And you know, without a shadow of a doubt, we were burning $250 million of cash a year, and our EBITDA was about 70 million adverse, and you know, that was some 400 million away from what we promised investors we would exit 2026 at. It looked a bit like this, and so you know, we started an IPO. We went out to IPO in early 2021. You know, after rapid growth, investors thought we were the golden child. We went out at £3.50, came down a bit, went back up again, and then, of course, COVID came towards an end and markets opened up, and all of a sudden the demand on the sort of delivery service we were providing flatlined a little bit, and our share price over the following year and a half dropped. And when I joined at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, our share price had gone from a peak of near £4 to about 90p. So we've got a whole bunch of investors on our backs. New CFO joining roughly about the same time as me. So the case point here is a kind of burning platform that something needs to be done pretty damn quickly. The problem was, at the time, we had procurement didn't have a particularly brilliant reputation in Deliveroo, but the thing that we knew we had to do was to run a dual track program. Okay? We had to run a dual track program. There was no time to be thinking about taking cost out of the business and then thinking about fixing all of the processes and systems and things at a later date. Had to do it all in one go. So we spent 2023 rebuilding some of our, some of the way that we were thought about, the trust in us, the way that we engage with the business, and building the foundations that allowed us to be able to go and do something like this. But in reality, we then ran a 13-month program where we kicked off March last year. Then we launched the first part of Cooper sourced a contract in July that year. The next month we automated all of our invoicing, and then we launched Cooper's sourcing optimization, and that allowed us to go and save a load of money, which then started to fund the rest of the program as well. And then towards the end of March, beginning of April, we turned everything else off, and we put Cooper live across the entire organisation, in every country, in every business unit, all switched on at 8 o'clock in the morning on UK time, the 1st of April, the whole lot. So that's 13 months from design, kick-off to going live. And at the same time, we ran the cost out program that we were debating, which one do we do first. And we had a diagnostic at the end of 2023 to prove that there was value there, because our business didn't believe there was value there. They thought they'd done a great job, and that's why they didn't really need us. And so we proved that there was some value there. There was still a little faith in that, despite the fact that our good friends at PwC did a superb piece of work with us. They discounted it and said, there's no way you're going to get that. So they discounted us back to 26 million, and we had to get 26 million out by the end of 2026 run rate needed to be. Well, by the end of November, so 7 months later from actually kicking off that cost out program, we were already at 27. So that was starting to prove the point. I think when I made some communication about this a little while ago with my CFO, we were roughly around 54 million. We're currently at 64. Okay, so that's 64 cumulative cost out, and that is September from March last year. So that's the kind of dual track that we've run in that sort of space, and I think that's fine. Burning platform really needed, but the thing that when I talk about this, that people tend to get a bit more interested in is, well, how do you do that, right? So this is take out an old system, put in a new one, change the way the business is working, introduce a whole load of new capabilities, introduce new policies, change the way the function is set up, and at the same time deliver that kind of cost reduction. So that's what I'm going to end up spending the rest of the time talking about. The critical thing here is how you take your business with you and line them up in the first place, right? So there's no point if you're walking into a place where you've got a bit of a dodgy reputation, you're seen as the admin function for getting contract renewals out and over the line. I bet if I asked, many people would put their hands up and say they've been in a situation like that. And thinking you're suddenly going to become a trusted advisor to the business is just simply not, that's not going to wash, right? So where do we start? I joined, on day one, I had a hypothesis about what we could go and do. Go and have a look at the investor reports, go and have a look at the annual report. You'll understand what the principal risks are. You'll understand what's on the board's mind. Build the hypothesis. And in the first week or two, get in front of a few senior stakeholders that you'll typically have been introduced to anyway, and test it, and reiterate it, and gradually build that around until you start to build some kind of alignment on what the issues are and what the problems are that you are then looking into face, and therefore what you can go do. So it starts with a hypothesis and test it and get alignment with that. Incidentally, when I did that with our Chief Technology Officer on probably February, because I joined and then decided I would go on holiday for a week. A little bit later on, I met with the Chief Technology Officer about 3 or 4 weeks later, and I took him through my hypothesis, and I told him that I believed that there was, by a number of actions, there was an amount of savings to go after because of a number of things that were sat there that I'd already observed, and then related that back to basis point change in EBITDA and a number of other different areas of interest that were playing on the board's mind at the time. And he said to me that is the first time that anybody in any procurement function, in any way he's worked, and he used to pretty much lead all of AWS development at Amazon. It's the first time anybody's had a conversation like that with him. So that's another thing to think about, right? Think about how you position this with the people that are sat as the decision makers and the sort of conversation that they are having versus the sort of conversation that we might be having on a day-to-day basis. So there's a hypothesis. Then you kind of got to build support. You've got a bit of support because people have agreed with you. You've refined your hypothesis around some of that. But you've got no reputation other than what you've come with. But they've not experienced that. And bearing in mind at this point, half my original team had left, right? They're gone. See, some things were changing. So I had like 2 people. And so rigorously focus on the things that make a difference. Solve problems. We had 2 or 3 problems that were sitting there at the time that hadn't been dealt with. We had a major fraud issue that had happened 2 years earlier with one of our payment service providers, and nobody had actually stepped in and dealt with it. It was worth something like £6 or £7 million. And so I picked it up, solved it, negotiated a settlement, and suddenly, oh, hang on a minute, we've been sat there without this for a while, nobody's done anything with it, and you've come in and you've sorted that out. Right, okay. So then I get a question about, well, can you help me with this other thing? Yeah, by all means. And gradually, and the word starts to go around that you've had these things, these underlying problems that have been going on, and somebody's come and actually fixed them. I didn't do any sourcing at that point. I hadn't instructed anybody to do any sourcing. I hadn't gone out and deliberately tried to run a project or say, I'll take that off your hands and I'll run that project for you. It was just fixing problems. In the background, starting to get an idea of the shape of the business and the problems that sit there and starting to blueprint what that might look like. Now, fortunately, I've done a bit of this before, so I've got a sense of what I thought it needed to look like. And that helped. It gave us a bit of a blueprint to start with, and that started to refine as we asked questions through the organisation. But there was a real education needed. We got broken processes that had been designed overly complex for IPO, and it was all done on a basis of audit and risk, and not on what's the user going to feel like when they're going through this, right? Yeah, classic way of mucking up how you go and engage with your business and have them involved in your processes is by making sure that someone from audit designs it. So there are all the problems, but align those with the business. You know, do you recognise this to be a problem? Yes. What happens if we solve this, or if we tweak this, or if we change the way that worked? Would that make a big difference? And talking to the business in a way, and business stakeholders and key stakeholders in a way that is relevant to them. No point talking procurement language. No point talking about how you're thinking about configuring your system, or you know, what questions do you think ought to be asked, or where you think risk assessment needs to sit. Or they're not interested in all of that. They want to know what you're doing for them, and they want to know how it's appropriate to them and how it's going to help them win more business, grow the business, or make their lives a little bit more easy, or support their team. So they're the stories. Convert the stories. Tell it. What about paint a picture, paint a vision for what this could be like, and then show them that it could be possible. Draw it. I spent an afternoon with a group of people who just had no concept of what this would look like, and literally drew it on a whiteboard and had a debate with them. You know, but you can't do this. Well, and we proved on a couple of occasions that the problems that we were experiencing were because of the problem itself in a circular way, which is just utterly bizarre. You can't do catalogues here because we're always putting on new suppliers. Why do you think we're always putting on new suppliers? Well, because we're a growing business and everything's changing. No, we're not. We are not growing anymore. And we haven't put anything new in the last 2 years, right? So what's new? Nothing. Why do you think people keep putting on new suppliers? Do you think it's because they can't find what they're looking for? Well, probably, yeah. Okay, why do you think they can't find what they're looking for? We haven't got any catalogues. The catalogues won't work because we haven't got catalogues. You know, it's circular, right? So you have to help people understand this. So we're kind of building this sort of swathe of and wave of support that something needed to change, and that's what got us going and built that. And the other thing, I needed money. I needed money and I needed investment. And I made sure that when I was putting those business cases together, that the requests were not unrealistic. So I needed resource to go after the cost savings. Fine, okay, that is a direct return. But I also needed money to go and change all the systems. And if I go and tell my CFO that I'm going to deliver 10 times return on investment by changing a system, she's going to tell me to politely get out of her office because she doesn't believe it. She's seen these business requests and investment cases time and time again, and never ever been able to find the value that has been promised in the business case. So don't try. In her eyes, her problem was she couldn't report an accurate set of numbers. She didn't understand where things were in process. She didn't understand how we made sure that we were accruing properly, or that we were paying suppliers on the right at the right time, and all the assurances that she needed to be able to give to auditors, she didn't know how to do. That's the problem we solved, and it came at a relatively small cost in her eyes, because the fines, the issues that she was worried about were not about EBITDA at that point, they were about regulatory compliance. And in fact, the last time I did this, it was not done on delivering a saving. I said, if we deliver some money off the back of this, it'll offset it, right? But it's actually about how you think about risk and compliance, et cetera, et cetera. It's always an easier way. So that's setting it up. The other thing is to choose really, really good partners. So we've had several partners involved in this. There's no way we could have done this on our own. I talked a little bit in an earlier session with Zach around how we chose Cooper and Rossum. It was a relatively quick process in the end. After I got rid of the idea that we needed to, in 2022, I think the team before me had gone out and spoken to 61 tech suppliers. It got to the point where nobody actually wanted to talk to us because they had got no idea what we wanted to do, and they had no idea what problem we were trying to solve. And less of all, if they were one of 61, they stood virtually no chance of being selected. So we slimmed that down a bit, got real about what it was we were able to do with the resources that we got. So we chose Cooper and we chose Rossum. So they were our technology stack, put end to end. KPMG were our SI partner. One of the reasons we chose them at the time was they were a bit more advanced in having an out-of-the-box solution ready to go. If we were going to do this fast, there was no way we were going to make 980 different design decisions in Cooper end to end. There's no way. So we had to have most of those already made for us in a kind of best-in-class environment by somebody who had done this over and over and over again. PwC partnered with us in proving the case around the savings, the desktop analysis, getting into stakeholders, asking challenging questions so that we didn't have to protect us a little bit from some of that. They came up with everything that we needed that had all the proof case behind the savings that I said were immediately available. On day 2, I presented something that said there were 32 million savings available relatively quickly, within a year or so. PwC came back with a range, and their number in the middle was 31, but it took a year to get to that point. And then 09, our partners at 09. I don't have the ability to recruit loads and loads of people. I have to flex my resource according to what I need to do at the time, and 09 have been outstanding at helping us in doing that. So, as and when I need somebody to work on I need to get some TPRM design embedded, in comes somebody that can do that. If I need, and I can flex the resources up and down accordingly. So that's a partnership, and all able to, one of the key things for me was they're able to move at pace. The other thing is governance, right? So boring, right? Governance is boring, but this was critical. And we get caught up in this idea that in governance, you sort your steer co out, you sort your design co out, your design authority out, and do you know what? You stick with them. No, you don't. You choose your steer co according to the phase that you're in, and then move it. Right? So by the time we got into kind of heading towards integration testing, our steer co was useless, the majority of it, for what we needed going forward. They were all technical folk, right? We were entering into a period of change. I needed people who knew how this was going to impact the business and what the impact on people was going to be. So we swapped things around. We changed that up. And in doing so, we had a program kickoff. We had different normal kind of forums that you would do, regular check-ins. We kept the numbers involved in those as slim as we possibly could so that they could be quick. And we were focused on outcomes, and then adapted that as we went along. But also in the cost out stuff, right? That doesn't just happen. So we built Exco alignment, we got Exco sign-off for the program at the outset, the kind of pipeline that looked like we were going after and the resources that we were going to need. We went after and recruited extra resource, extra people, with the skill sets that we knew we were missing at the time, the ability to get flexible around it, got the CFO sign off on everything. We took everything to Exco like every couple of weeks for the first period while they were getting into it and understanding it, putting the challenges there. And then we followed that process, but the interconnections and numbers of people involved meant that we had to make sure that this was super, super connected. So while there might have been two different steercos going on, actually we made sure that there was a thread running through both of them. And then I guess the other, so from my perspective, if I was thinking about, well, how do we do this? What are the things that I can kind of share that might help folk, right? Principle. Do not design a solution around your business that exists today, right? If you want to do this quick, take something out of the box by somebody that has done it many, many times before and adjust your business around it. Turn your business into best in class, not try and think that your business is best in class and adapt things around that. Design with future in mind, design with efficiency, make sure you know where you think you might be going beyond that journey. Remember that technology is moving extremely fast, so what the platform you start designing on in March, by November there have been 2 releases and it's a different product. So be thinking about where you want to go 4 or 5 years ahead. Don't lose sight of your principles. You said you were going to stick to this. You said you were going to stick to best practice. You were not going to do anything else, etc., etc. So hold yourself to account. Get your suppliers, your service providers to hold you to account. You hold your team to account that you stick within those principles. And don't forget people. The principal thing around this is people. It's easy to put systems in. I know people say, oh, that's really difficult, but actually it's relatively easy to put systems in. It's really difficult to change people around them. So think about how you do that. We had our users doing all the testing. We ran 78 user experience sessions. We ran 1,000 test scripts, and it went on, and open forums and drop-in sessions forever and ever, and a lot of swag, right? So don't underestimate the power of a branded cupcake, a water bottle, and a USB cable, and what difference that makes, and lots of balloons in the office, and it suddenly becomes a huge thing, and everybody goes, blimey, something's changed today. So there we go, outcomes. Where we were before, policy police, blocker, late to the table, contract admin. Now we're problem solver, trusted partner, shaping outcomes, enablers, and innovators. I know everything that's coming up over the next 15 months with our business. So I'm able to sit, when I am working through at the moment, we've enabled our business to be an acquisition target because it's a really good business now to be buying. And I now am able to sit with my counterpart and I can say, I know everything that's going on, and I know that I've got workstream leads coming to me from the integration who are saying, we're being asked about this contract and what have you, so can you help us? And because we know that we're now seeing that in other places, that kind of level of integration is not there. So what's the outcome total? We flipped 260 million in EBITDA in 2 years. We've turned a $250 million cash flow negative into cash generative. And we have doubled the share price and turned the business into something that has been acquired as a going concern, as opposed to one that looked like it would run out of cash in 2 years. So that's where we are. I recognise I've gone straight over them. This is flashing at me, so I don't know if we've got any time for any questions. Have we got any?
I think if there are any questions, we absolutely deserve to have some. I'll grab a microphone. Oh, Kendra, thank you. Really
Sorry,
quickly,
you can't tell a story like that in about
No,
15 minutes.
No, this has been absolutely spellbinding, so please.
Hi, Rob. Quick question from me. I'm Jothy from Axis
Hi.
Procurement. Hi. Big fan.
Good. Thank you.
So your lead time, the project lifetime is over a year long. How did you keep people engaged? How did you stop people from having, apathy or low morale? How did you keep people engaged in the project and your stakeholders engaged?
That's a good question. So lots of humour, lots of things we do together, and being really clear and painting pictures and visions of what's going on, so that they really feel like they're part of delivering something that's transformational for the business. And I think that I got a bunch of people working with me who had never done anything like this before, right? So the opportunity to learn was huge, and the opportunity to take on responsibility was huge, and do it in a relatively safe environment because you've got some good partners around you to help you, and I think that is what drove people through. I mean, you also don't do something in that time frame without people working extraordinarily long hours. I got kind of people who were, under normal circumstances you would not expect to work weekends, were doing process maps at weekends, or trying to design a supplier web page at 2 o'clock in the morning. People were working and they wanted to do it because they wanted to be part of something quite significant.
Any more questions? No, we're there. That's good, because I'm looking at the clock as well. Rob, this is genuinely one of the most compelling and inspiring stories we've had on the stage for ages. Genuinely, thank you very much indeed for sharing that. And brilliant to hear that at the end it's all about the people, stupid. As you quite rightly said. And just one reflection is that your presentation just seems to be a wake-up call for procurement to be much more involved in the leadership of the business than perhaps some procurement functions are.
Yes, no, absolutely. Engaging and really understanding the business. Don't sit there and think they're going to come to you, because they ain't.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Rob Turner, thank you very much indeed.